Unfortunately, Masters of the Universe does not have the power, at least when it comes to performing well at the box office. We're here to break down the many reasons why it didn't get butts in theater seats. Masters of the Universe is based largely on a 1980s Filmation cartoon that appealed to kids at the time. Eternia's denizens were once so beloved that He-Man's sidekick Orko even showed up with Alan Thicke in a video to help children cope with the topic of divorce.
This is the hardest time ever. When your mom and dad are breaking up, you may not even know what's going to happen.
Amazon MGM Studios and the other financiers behind Travis Knight's live-action film adaptation clearly hoped that a new generation of kids would fall in love with He-Man and friends, and they probably couldn't have been more wrong. Those lofty hopes were obliterated the moment the opening night box office data came in. Only 4% of the debut audience was under the age of 12, which means that it was resonating almost exclusively with nostalgic adults rather than a new generation of young fans. According to IGN, a whopping 40% of the audience was over the age of 45. With this massive drawback, it's no wonder it didn't perform well. So where was the younger crowd when Masters of the Universe dropped? Were they at home watching YouTube or TikTok? Nope. They were in fact packing theater seats, just in different rooms. As we all know by now, Kane Parsons' Backrooms is considerably more popular, having become one of A24's highest-grossing films of all time. It now holds the #1 spot domestically.
I'm not saying I don't believe you.
Okay, I'm gonna come back here with proof.
A big reason for this is, of course, due to Parsons' pre-existing YouTube fame amongst his fellow Gen Z cohorts. His original Backrooms installments have garnered hundreds of millions of views since he started posting them 4+ years ago. Masters of the Universe has also been up against Obsession, a well-done horror film written, directed, and edited by Curry Barker. This movie's insane word-of-mouth box office run has become the stuff of legends. Barker, like Parsons, first found success on YouTube. Against a measly budget of $750,000, the film has gone on to rake in well over $200 million. And don't forget about Scary Movie.
We back!
You'd think that yet another installment in a franchise that hasn't been truly relevant since the early 2000s wouldn't be too popular amongst the younger crowd, but this couldn't be farther from the truth. According to The Wrap, 72% of moviegoers so far have fallen in the 18 to 34 demographic. All of that being said, it's no surprise that Masters of the Universe didn't stand a chance when it comes to ticket sales. Besides the stiff competition, the overall marketing campaign is also to blame. With any movie like Masters of the Universe, a first live-action installment of a franchise that hasn't been relevant for quite some time, hype is important. Unfortunately, the marketing team behind its release dropped the ball in more ways than one. First off, they mostly relied on nothing more than a few trailers and clips to promote the film, in addition to a few appearances on Wired and Entertainment Tonight. In 2026, this just isn't enough, especially when it comes to something that doesn't have nearly as much built-in hype, like the previously mentioned Backrooms or Amazon MGM's much more successful investment, Project Hail Mary. To be fair, Nicholas Galitzine did make a pretty memorable appearance on Jimmy Fallon's show to promote the film, which involved him recreating that viral He-Man meme. But yeah, we'll just let that speak for itself. Critics' takes on the film before its official release didn't help either, which you can sort of think of as a related facet of marketing. Reviews weren't terrible by any means, but they weren't glowing either. In a world where even the biggest IPs have to fight for space in the pop culture conversation, lukewarm reviews are pretty much the only excuse people need to avoid paying to see a movie in theaters. Considering how 80s nostalgia has been a largely successful genre over the course of the past decade or so, you'd think the marketing wouldn't matter as much, but we're starting to feel like the demand for such content is slowly starting to dwindle. Sure, there have been a few recent successes like Top Gun Maverick or Beetlejuice.
The deuce is loose.
But movies like Masters of the Universe just aren't living up to expectations. While this can't be confirmed with concrete numbers or anything tangible, we think Stranger Things finally coming to a conclusion might signal the beginning of the end for this sort of content. Netflix's flagship series was arguably the catalyst for the most recent 80s nostalgia craze as a whole, so it would only make sense that it would also herald its inevitable decline. The 90s are where it's at now anyway, right? Hopefully we get something a little more exciting than the Power Rangers reboot series they're working on for Disney+. We're all pretty well aware of how big-budget action films full of CGI and fan service just aren't the slam dunks they used to be. Even MCU movies like Thunderbolts have stumbled at the box office these past few years.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
There are many reasons for this, such as the shrinking of the international box office market, weak writing, and genre fatigue, to name a few. Whatever the case may be for Masters of the Universe, its massive production budget of $170 million pretty much guaranteed that it was destined to flop. Note that this is only $10 million less than the previously mentioned Thunderbolts, a film that, unlike Masters of the Universe, had some hefty coattails to ride on. If it had dropped a decade ago, Masters of the Universe might have had a shot at nearly doubling its price tag with a likely $400 million worldwide gross. But in the year of our Lord 2026, it didn't stand a chance. Speaking of the idea of riding on coattails, it's worth noting that He-Man hasn't been nearly as present in pop culture as other dated IPs. Transformers, for instance, another IP from the He-Man era, has managed to maintain relevancy for a better portion of the last 20 years, thanks to its 7 feature films. And before that, it remained popular in the 90s thanks to numerous animated series and comic book runs. This isn't to say that there hasn't been a relatively steady flow of He-Man content over the past few decades. They've made comics, they've made animated series, but none of these have managed to excite the masses in the same way. More or less, it's always been a more niche property that appeals to a smaller fan base. In September 2018, Mattel Films was launched as a division that could produce motion pictures based on pre-existing properties. Since its launch, only 2 films have emerged from the label: Barbie and Masters of the Universe.
Some things have been happening that might be related.
While Barbie and several other toy-based movies such as Transformers and the Lego Movie were box office smashes, they're major exceptions to the rule. Snake Eyes' G.I. Joe Origins, Max Steel, Battleship, Bratz the movie, Ugly Dolls, Playmobil the movie, these are all toy-based movies that failed to perform well at the box office. While these financial failures had far greater issues to contend with than their source material, coming from the world of toys certainly didn't help. Now we can add Masters of the Universe to the list. While Middle-earth and Harry Potter tend to perform extremely well at the box office, countless other movies that take place in fantasy worlds bomb hard when the ticket booths open. Just ask the various 21st century King Arthur films: Aragon, Mortal Engines, Pan, and countless other titles. Why is this the case? It might very well come down to the fact that fantasy movies often seem too nerdy for general audiences. This is definitely the case with Masters of the Universe. There's also the silliness factor. When compared to the previously mentioned Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter movies, it's a lot more over-the-top and goofy, and thus much less likely to entice large swaths of more serious moviegoers to reconnect with their inner child and buy tickets. When it comes to fantasy movies, they're most successful when they strike a happy medium, and Masters of the Universe instead went all in. Right, Leto?
Let me show you what real power looks like.
Speaking of Jared Leto, few actors in the 2020s have had worse luck at the box office than him.
Box office poison.
Sure, the failure of his 2021 crime drama The Little Things could at least be partially blamed on its simultaneous HBO Max premiere and the whole pandemic thing. But when it comes to Morbius, Haunted Mansion, or Tron Ares, excuses were in short supply. While Leto's name wasn't prominently featured in the movie's advertising, his major presence in the film Skeletor was still widely known and openly talked about in pre-release interviews. Thus, Universe couldn't elude the bad luck that Leto-connected movies have endured.
I am a devil, but I mean to be a god.
Ironically, whereas he was totally snoozing through Tron Ares and Morbius, Leto's go-for-broke wickedness in his Skeletor performance is one of the major highlights of Masters of the Universe. As one fan said on Reddit, it was the most robot chicken thing ever, and yet so on the nose for how the official character would act as well. So good. And really, there were a lot of highlights overall, at least according to the people who actually showed up to support the movie in theaters. As of this video, Masters of the Universe has a very respectable 87% audience score. One fan wrote on the site, "This movie was absolutely awesome. How it is not performing well at the box office is mind-boggling. Hopefully word of mouth and the great reviews will get people out to see it. If you are a He-Man and Skeletor fan, you absolutely will love this movie. If you don't know who they are and know nothing about the Masters of the Universe, you will also love this movie." Another fan wrote on Reddit, "Loved it. Damn good movie. Grinned like an idiot the whole time. I have a feeling this will do a Dungeons & Dragons, another absolutely amazing movie that did poor numbers and thus got an undeserved rep." These are only a few of very similar sentiments. Considering this overall consensus, it goes without saying that it's never fair to rely on box office numbers alone when appraising a film. As we've explored throughout this video, its failure can mostly be attributed to factors that have nothing to do with the actual quality of the movie. In time, we don't doubt that this will be considered as a cult classic. or at the very least, a solid continuation of the franchise that warrants more movies or TV series in the future.